Hello, hello, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Fudge Muppet, and we're on that Fallout 76 hype. We are talking about everything Fallout 76, and just before we get into this video, do remember to subscribe and follow us for all of our coverage. E3 is going to be crazy, we'll be on it all, and also, of course, when the game eventually comes out. So subscribe for that. We plan on covering it just like we covered Fallout 4 with builds, guides, yada yada, everything we can possibly do. Anyways, so there's been these rumors going on about Fallout 76 and how it could be an online game or a multiplayer type game. Some people are saying things like, oh, like Rust or a battle royale or stuff like that. But these are interesting, but I don't think it necessarily will be like that. Today, I just basically want to talk about multiplayer and sort of co-op in a Fallout game and how it could work, because there are some problems with the foundations of Fallout when you consider things like VATS, or when you how stats work, or how the setup kind of is. Like, is it a online sort of persistent server with lots of people running around sort of MMO style, or is it just sort of drop-in co-op, sort of like a joined game system where you can bring your friend can bring their character into your world, which I think is the more believable of all of them, honestly. Like, I still believe or think that it's likely that there will just be an open world, and it's sort of focused on the base building and the improvised weapons and questing and stuff, but it's sort of built around multiple potential, like, sort of main characters, like you and your friends, or maybe not, because the premise of the Vault, and like we said this in our trailer analysis, it's sort of about coming out and rebuilding and reclaiming the land. And with that sort of premise, it seems likely that you're not like the only survivor. You're not the lone wanderer or the sole survivor. You don't have to like go on some mission to find your son or to find your father. Instead, you've got a pretty simple premise, which is go out into the world and reclaim and rebuild, like, and that could be with multiple people. Like, that could be the intention of the entire Vault. So the premise sort of allows for a co-op setup in terms of like the world building. Like, it's not just like, oh, there's two lone wanderers or two sole survivors. It's kind of built around being a Vault 76 dweller, and you're going out and entering the world with a friend and so on. Who's your friend from the Vault? You know what I mean? So from the world building role playing perspective, this could make sense with what we know so far. Now, people have been talking about the survival elements and the base building being a big part of it, improvising weapons like the sort of Rust and Age of Conan and stuff like that, which I can see, but I just don't think it's going to be as many people on the multiplayer game. Like, there is on the board game in this one shot in the trailer that says up to 5 on the board game, so maybe like up to 5 players. That could be a thing, but the reason I don't think it's MMO style is because a lot of the gameplay functions will have to change. Like, you've got VATS. So let's just pretend that it's a MMO style, persistent sort of server, multiplayer game, and then you've got people everywhere, all over the game, and how to use VATS. Like, you can't just pause the game for the entirety of everyone in the server. That would be annoying as hell. And then, as we know in Fallout 4, it did change to slowing down time in VATS. But if you were playing in co-op, maybe with 1 to 5, I can understand this could be still a little bit annoying. But if one person enters VATS, it could slow down for everyone, and everyone's still just in their screen to slow down to VATS time, but everyone can still sort of move and see what they're doing. But then VATS could still kind of work. Like, that's a bit of it. It will still be interesting to see how it happens, but it will only be slowing down for, you know, a bunch of like maybe 2 or 3 people playing on the same game world who are sort of probably following the same objectives, so it kind of makes sense. And there's things like, you know, the luck, like, you know, the critical hit meter, and like how do stats work if there is no VATS. Like, what's the point of agility? Like, I'm sure they're going to have specials. Like, they're not going to just get rid of attributes or special stats, because then you really are leaning to some sort of Rust kind of thing. But there is some interesting potential there for co-op. Like, if you have all the perks, and I don't know if they'd bring skills back, but let's assume they're not, and it's just perks, like something similar to a Fallout 4's perk tree. You could have co-op characters, and you're playing together, but you could specialize in certain kind of paths. Like, for example, one of the guys could be a real sneaky sniper type with lockpicking, and someone else could be a real demolitions but also melee kind of dude. And with those two kind of builds or like, you know, perk setups in co-op could lead to some really, really fun experiences. I'm thinking more along the lines of Far Cry 5 kind of co-op, at least to the feel of it. But I feel like the team-based settlement building and stuff will make a big part of the game, especially with the Reclaim rebuild. It's only been 25 years since the bombs fell, so there's not a lot of pre-established like civilization. Like, they've only had 25 years to set up little settlements, like the people who survived up on the surface. So when you come out, it seems like there'll be a lot of potential for you to be building in areas and maybe setting up farms and you know, harvesting resources. And I do imagine quite easily, I do believe that it will be a lot more survivally, resourcey, managing oriented than Fallout 4 was even. But I just don't think it's going to be some big Rust Fortnite thing like they're saying. Like, I just don't see Bethesda Game Studios throwing out sort of all the handcraft map design and open questing kind of game style just for a base building battle royale type hybrid game. I just have an inkling that it will be more like a Fallout game with co-op rather than some Fortnite Rust kind of clone that everyone's freaking out about. I mean, if you just watch the trailer, they've made such an effort to sort of set up this, you know, country atmosphere and the music, and the world building sort of begun. It gives me a new Fallout game feel from the teaser, and I feel like Bethesda would kind of be shooting themselves in the foot if they kind of present it as this new Fallout game and then it is just a Fortnite or a Rust. Like, I think the new thing they're going to be trying is co-op, but I feel it will be quite still within the hands of the player. Like, it's not a server where you can just have all these different people ruining your experience. I feel it will be more about going in with your friends and experiencing a game world together, so you still have that, you know, like under 5 players or something like that. Even if it's just you and 2 friends, you can still feel like, yeah, we're vault dwellers venturing out into the wilds and we're building our base, and it sort of adds a new element to a Fallout game, which could be really, really fun. Because imagine exploring a post-apocalyptic world and trying to survive with your friends. This is really fun, but it kind of kills it a bit if then there's just, you know, 10 other guys coming around, blowing up your base and fucking with your shit. And on the build sort of role-playing side of things, I think this is actually a pretty good setup. Having that sort of general, like, reclamation, we're just out to reclaim the land coming out from Vault 76 and you and other Vault dwellers. If this is the setup to the game, it allows you to go out and be who you want to be. For example, you could go out and maybe you're playing co-op with your friends who are just other Vault dwellers in that case, who have left the Vault with you to reclaim the land. And you can sort of build like a merchant town, and maybe there's some, like, you know, farming and stuff like that. Or you could just go and turn into a raider gang and raid some other sort of settlements or people or stuff that exists. Like this is the kind of stuff I imagine. I have this idea that it's going to be more like Fallout 4 with co-op, rather than some sort of Rust or heavy multiplayer game, if you know what I mean. They have this chance here to make a really open world sandbox experience, because you're going to be having more say over your bases and your weapons and your sort of role-playing experience as you and your friend. Like, you know, I'm interested to see what they do, but I really think that it will be a co-op thing. I just think it kind of cuts a lot of the gameplay with a sort of Rust kind of thing. Like, you got all these first person, like, you can imagine the Fallout 4 kind of mechanics, but like multiplayer, but then with like 100 people on the server just running around the map. And it kind of doesn't even make sense if there's like, they're all from Vault 76 as well, but then they turn against each other. Like, it makes a lot more sense to me to just have a co-op sort of adventure with others who are other Vault dwellers from Vault 76. But, you know, that's even if they are. But it's just the inkling that I get. And, you know, the rebuild, reclaim themes are all strong. So I do imagine co-op could be a main theme of the game. I feel like it might be a bit of like there's Vault Unity. It's like you and your Vault Dwellers going out, and you know what I mean? But yeah, and with just co-op, things like the VATs and the stats and stuff, and it wouldn't have to necessarily be as balanced like we know in Fallout RPGs and like all that stuff like Skyrim. There's certain ways to play that are very, very overpowered. Like you can break the games always and level up and abuse it a little bit, whereas if it was a multiplayer sort of game like Rust or something like that with hundreds of people on the map, they would have to balance it because it's based around a sort of competitive play. That's why I feel like if it's co-op, it's not as severe or much of a problem, so they can still sort of just work off their old perk systems and think about putting in what's cool and what are cool perks and cool skills and stuff like that, rather than having to go, oh well, this isn't as balanced, we need to nerf this and nerf that. So yeah, I think that's pretty much sums up all of my thoughts on how it could work and probably will work, but this is just me speaking from my own mind. I just think overall that there will be a lot of complications if they go for a Fortnite Rust kind of style, whereas co-op would be with like 1 to 5 people would be relatively low consequence. And I suggested things like the VATs, like it could just slow down for everyone, but it's not a big deal because you're all sort of on the same objective or like team, and you know what I mean, and there's not all the balancing problems and stuff. So yeah, anyways, thanks very much for listening. Remember to subscribe. Let me know what you think. We're going to be talking about Fallout 76 all the way up to E3, and then we're going to be talking about even more, and hopefully there is some really, really good clarity given to us with this E3 presentation coming up very soon. So thanks very much for listening. Subscribe again. My name is Scott from Fudge Muppet, and I'll be back to nerd out with you again very, very, very soon. Fallout 76 hype intact.